Welcome to Kim Talks Resilience, where we share stories of insight and inspiration in life, love, and business with resilient women from around the world. Speaking with authors, entrepreneurs, founders, and coaches to learn their strategies for a more resilient life so we can all build the life we love. I'm your host, Kim Hayden. Alrighty. Welcome back. I'm looking forward to today's conversation because there was a poll done. This is like a decade ago, but there was a poll done that they asked people in the United States, or in North America, do you want to write a book? Are you going to write a book? And so forth. 80% of all people who were polled said, I'm writing a book. I'm in the process of book. I have a book in me. I would like to write a book in the future. And yet, even with all the amazing opportunities and the way that the publishing world has shifted, it's still less than 10% of North Americans, and I think it's less than 6% globally are actually published authors. And yet, I can promise you this: everybody has a story to share. Everybody has a story to share. And what a gift we leave when we leave the legacy of our stories. So our guest today is Larissa. And Larissa is an international best-selling author and the CEO of NextPage Publishing. As the company's founder and an accidental author, Larissa's mission is to help her fellow superwomen write a book that sells and grows their business while crafting a legacy. As the mom to a beautiful little girl, her goal is to set an example for her daughter that they can both be proud of. So, and don't get her started here. Oh, and don't get her started on crafting. She could talk for days. So, well, we don't have days, but we'll get her started for sure. So let's bring her in. Hello, Larissa.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
I am. Well, and we're neighbors basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's,
Yes.
we are recording this on May long weekend. And the joke here is if we can have gorgeous weather and May long will come and it will snow. And sure enough, woke up this morning and we had sleet. So did you look outside yet? It's raining and sleeting. It's awful.
Yeah, we're just a little bit north of you. And so we don't have that, but it is supposed to be -1 tonight.
Yep.
And I'm like, do I cover my flowers? Do I bring them in? Do I just wish them luck?
Oh, you were brave. You already planted. I always wait till next weekend to do something when flowers are the most expensive to purchase.
Yes.
I like to wait when there are no deals to be had. All right. So we know that you are from Red Deer, Alberta, but can you give us a little bit of background as to who is Larissa? And I'm going to be really curious about this accidental author.
Yeah, I'm going to get into that when I start talking about my resiliency story, because writing the book was a huge part of my resiliency journey. And so we're going to get into that. But my name is Larissa Soehn, and I am the CEO of NextPage Publishing, a publishing house that was built after I became that accidental author and realized just how vicious the publishing world could be, just how predatory it could feel if you were a new author and you didn't know what you were doing, which is exactly what I was when I joined the vanity press. And through that experience, I learned what a vanity press was, and I learned how they were not there to help me and support me. They were there to just get my money and then push my book out. And I was honestly devastated. It was my first book. It was my baby. It felt like I had birthed this thing. I'd worked on it for a year. I really wanted it to be really good. And to be promised the world and then get literally nothing. No education on how I was supposed to market it. No even education that I was supposed to market it. They were kind of sold me on the fact that if I write it and I publish it with them, I'm going to be rich and famous. And obviously not rich and famous. I'm not a household name yet, but I built this publishing house so that people didn't go through what I went through. They didn't feel taken advantage of and feel like they were powerless with their own book.
Yeah, it is an interesting space. That's for sure. I stick to the multi-author books because they're just simple and I'm more of a collaborative person. I don't even know if I have enough focus to put my own story down because it takes work. It's not easy. even with all of today's tools, it's still not easy to just make it happen, right? What is it that sets your publishing house? So you learned what you didn't like.
Mhm.
So what have you implemented that sets you outside of kind of that normal self-publishing or guided publishing or publishing houses?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways that we're different. One is our approach to partnership. When people sign with us and when they come in, they're committing to us for about a year. We work together for a year-long process. And quite often these people come to us with that idea. Like, I really want to write a book. And right in the discovery call is where we do the grounding work. Okay, what do you want to write about? What's the point? What's the purpose? What do you want to do? What are your goals? And then from that day on, we are your partners 100% through the process. We help you do the planning, we help you with the outline, the writing. We take over for the editing so that you can get a break because I've been there, done that. Editing is exhausting. And we don't want you to hate your book by the end of it because you're so tired of reading it. And so we take over some of that. So our programs are really built around entrepreneurs who are busy and often lack focus and lack time and lack the motivation or the accountability to get it done, and they need that partner. And we are all one-on-one. So everything that you do with us, you have your coach right beside you. I always say that we lead with love, support, and guidance, and in that order. We are here to pump you up more than anything and make sure you're on the right track and make sure that you have the confidence to keep going. But in the end, our goal is to make your book a 5-star read. We want to make it to the point where your readers cannot put it down. They are giving it to their friends, their moms. They think it's the best thing that they've read this year, and they're raving about it. That's our goal for you.
What do you think are the top 3 mistakes that future authors make?
Oh goodness. Can I only do 3?
Ah,
Our programs are really built around a foundation, and that is the actual one of the biggest mistakes we see people make is they jump right into the writing. And then they get halfway through and they're like, "Wow, and I'm speaking from experience. I'm also speaking from watching my husband go through this because he's my spouse and refuses to go through my programs even though they're amazing. But he just dove right in and he's about the halfway point now and he's like, I have no idea what this book is about. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I could have told you that. It's because you didn't do what I tell everyone to do, which is find out who your ideal reader is, know what your big promise is of your book, and then create your outline. But if you skip those first 3 steps and you just like you're feeling super energetic and passionate, that passion will fade. I guarantee you your passion will fade.
and so in being published, where do you think that people like what was it that you learned after you got published that really was something that is not true within the publishing world?
That your book is meant for everyone. A lot of people, and this is why we do that ideal reader in the beginning, is narrowing in on who is your book for. Because I've gotten like 2, 3-star reviews before, and I read the review and I'm like, well, clearly, I don't even know why you picked up this book. Like it was never meant for you. Like what I don't know what you were expecting to get out of my women's science fiction space opera when you wanted a male-driven fantasy. So the understanding who your book is for is going to tailor your marketing, but it's also going to give you a thicker skin and the ability to say, my book was never meant for you. So thank you for your feedback, but no, thank you.
Yeah, I can and that's know your audience.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I interview a lot of authors, self-published or even with publishing houses, authors, and they they talk a lot about, you know, that once they get through their friends and family, it fizzles and and at the end of the day, they really don't make their cash back directly from the book. What are
Hmm.
some of the things that you talk around about that?
Yeah, in the discovery call, first thing that I nailed down with this person is you will not earn like the investment in me back through royalties. I promise you that. Certainly not quickly. It might take a decade and you might make a dent in it. The money comes, and this is why I work with entrepreneurs and why I don't work with fiction authors because it is harder to get ROI on fiction books than it is from coaches writing book, because we want to use your book as a selling tool. The ROI comes from selling your programs, your workshops, your courses, your memberships, whatever it is that you're selling up into. It comes from paid speaking events, from getting on more podcasts, getting more clients. That's ROI. In a lot of cases, we don't even recommend going, like sending people directly to Amazon. Actually, I recommend you don't. Not in a lot of cases. In all cases, don't send your people directly to Amazon because you want to catch them before they get there.
Yeah.
You need to have a step in your funnel. Otherwise, you won't know who's reading your book. Inside your book, you want to have boundless opportunities to invite them into your network, to invite them to connect with you, to download free resources, to get them involved because you need them in your funnel. That's ROI. It's not from the royalties. I hate to break that to you. It just isn't there.
Yeah, no, yeah, if you're looking at, and there is absolutely a difference in the thought process. I see a lot of people that they write this memoir book and they expect it to get them on paid speaking stages. And in my experience, that's not how the whole process works. So what are some things that you get them to do to kind of move their mindset away from, the book's going to make me famous, to the book is to support my authority while I make me famous?
Yes. I always describe it as like a circus tent because running a business sometimes feels like I'm in the middle of a circus and there's just all
Yeah.
these elephants and monkeys running around. The book is like the pillar to the tent, and everything's going to come off the tent, and it's going to help you create the foundation, the stability to create all of these different streams, but the tent is your fame.
Yeah.
The tent is what's going to bring in those and keep those monkeys and elephants safe. But your book is a bargaining tool. It's a marketing tool. It's a leverage tool. It's an authority. It's a vulnerability piece. It invites people in. It's not going to sell itself. It's not going to make you a millionaire. You still have to do the work. But instead of just having this flappy little tent that's running around over top of your monkeys and elephants, you have a really solid structure that you're directing everything to and out of. And so you're not creating boundless funnels and these lead magnets and lead gen stuff. Like you don't need to do that anymore because it all goes through your book. When you're starting to negotiate with potentially paid speaking opportunities, your book is a leverage tool.
Yeah.
You offer them free copies of your book in exchange for a paid speaking gig, or you give them a discount on your book so that they can provide it to their audience. There's ways to use your book, but the book itself doesn't grant you the authority to be a paid speaking member. You got to work at it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, we know that statistically, because I've spoken about this on the show multiple times, that only 9% of businesses that start actually become 7-figure businesses, right? That's just a North American stat. In building your business and, just through it sounds like your husband is also self-employed and
He's not. He's
no,
corporate. He's corporate through and through,
corporate.
but he's still working on a book because
Oh,
he doesn't
very
want to be
cool.
corporate forever, right? It's
Yep.
actually part of his lead
His
out strategy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
See, and that's a great point. But can you share with us along this journey of building your company, those moments of resiliency that without those moments, we wouldn't be having this conversation?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go deep here and I'm going to put a trigger warning on this. The story's a little bit long. So if you'll give me 5 minutes to chat about it, and I am putting the trigger warning of miscarriage and suicide on here. So if this is not your jam, please skip forward a couple of minutes and listen to the rest of the interview where it gets a little bit lighter, I promise. So in 2021, on the eve of my 30th birthday, something biologically unsound happened in my brain where I went from declaring I would never have another kid. My one baby was perfect. Pushing her out of my body was horrendous. The pregnancy was horrendous. I never wanted to do it again. To within like 24 hours telling my husband, I think I'd like to have another baby. And I blame my biological clock thoroughly for that because my mind was screaming no, but my body was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I'm a fertile myrtle. 6 weeks later, we were staring at a positive pregnancy test. And in that moment, your whole world shifts. Whether you really knew what you were getting into or not, like this would have been my second baby. I was suddenly going to be a mom of two, and I was going to get a year off work because I'm Canadian, and that's one of or a year and a half now, if that's what you opt to go for. And it was going to be just this best vacation. I was just deluding myself entirely to what it was like to have a newborn, much less have a 3-year-old with a newborn. But I was excited. My husband was excited. Everything was optimistic. Our first pregnancy was so, I mean, albeit hard, I threw up in every place imaginable around Red Deer, but it was still beautiful, and I got this beautiful baby girl out of it, and so I was excited. And this pregnancy compared to my daughter was a breeze. I didn't have morning sickness. I was not tired all the time. Life was good. I just felt like blissfully pregnant, really only knowing I was pregnant, not really feeling I was pregnant, which, if you know about miscarriage and things like that, sometimes that's a precursor. And I got to about the 8-week mark, and I was at the local um, lake with my daughter, and we were at this really beautiful playground, and spring was blooming. It was April, sun was shining, the flowers were starting to come out, the wind off the lake was starting to feel warm, not frigidly cold. And I remember standing there pushing my daughter on the swing and feeling that feeling when your period's about to start. And of course, I'm 8 weeks pregnant, so red flag, alarm bells going off. And I told my husband, like, hey, I don't feel so great. I think we need to go home. Called my doctor, and they said, basically, there's nothing we can do. And they're right. There really was nothing we could do. We could get an ultrasound to make sure everything was okay, but even that was going to take a couple days or a week. And they said, let's just hold off and see what happens. And so cool, that's what we did. And a week went by, and things did get better. The cramping stopped, the spotting stopped, everything got better. And I was like, okay, baby's just going through a growth spurt. It's all good. Still going to have my little bundle of joy in, 6.5 months. It's all good. And then I went for a nap, and I woke up, and it was not all good. It was very much not all good. I was in, I can only describe it as labor. That's what it felt akin to when I went into labor with my daughter. And of course, my brain goes into trauma mode, right? So things get a little fuzzy. All I know is that the miscarriage was undeniable at this point. And I remember walking down to the stairs to my husband, who was working from home at the time because of COVID. And he couldn't see me, but when you can feel a shift in the air, like something's not right. And so he turned around, and you can tell when someone's whole life is shattering and shaking and changing. And in that instant, we both knew that that family of 4 wasn't going to be a thing for us ever. And it took 2 years. I went through a severe mental health crisis after this because the world's reaction to a miscarriage is get over it. Don't talk about it. Don't bring it up. Deal with it in private. Get back to work and move on. Or try again and pretend that one didn't happen. Like, it's not going to scar you for the rest of your life. And it does. And it took 2 years, and hospitalization visits for attempted suicide, and a lot of ups and downs, and years of therapy, which resulted in my book, which is a very weird way to segue to that. But my daughter saved my life through and through. The only reason that I didn't go through with what I wanted to was because of my daughter. And that picture right there is the one that stopped me the first time. That's my little girl at 3 years old, 2 days before she broke her leg. And she's everything. But then there was a part of me that it couldn't always be about her. I had to come back for me. I had to do something for me. And that's when I started creatively writing. It was something that was so selfish in a way, but
Yeah.
I desperately needed to be selfish. I desperately needed to sit down and figure out what my purpose for living was. It couldn't just be about her. I couldn't put that burden on her. I couldn't put that responsibility on her. It had to be about me. And so I accidentally wrote a 100,000-page sci-fi novel. That's how I became an accidental author, and that's how I stepped into this whole world. And now I look back on my miscarriage as one of the best things that ever happened to me. And if you want to talk about resiliency and you want to talk about finding the light in some of your darkest times, that is it for me. Because I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't go through that. I wouldn't be weird and wandering through the woods. I wouldn't be wearing wigs and changing my hair all the time. I wouldn't have a personality that wasn't so heavily dripped in corporate that I didn't know that I was even a human anymore. And that's all thanks to losing my little one.
Wow. No, I understand that. We have a nonprofit in Calgary that really addresses that the whole mindset, and it touches more women than we ever even think about, right? But I agree. As soon as you get find out that you are pregnant, it's like you can almost see their entire life.
Mhm.
Yeah, I get it. I have children, and
Mhm.
I myself had a tubal ligation. That one, and I laid in the hospital for 2 days, hoping that
Mhm.
everything would work out. It didn't. So
Mhm.
I do understand that, absolutely. And you're dealing with all of that. But so you became an accidental author, and this is what brought you into the publishing world, right?
Yes, very much.
So you write this accident. This is the sequel. This is not
It's not the
the
original. That's
right.
that's the baby number 2, yeah.
And this one's coming out when?
That one just came out on March 30th.
Oh, it
Um,
did. It
it
just
took
come out?
me longer to again, because the editing process is so in-depth, it took me quite a while to get through the editing, but I wrote all 3 books in the span of about 4 months. So I hit it hard. I hit it heavy. Again, being incredibly selfish in all the right ways. And on the cover, that's Alexia Harmon. She's my main character, and my daughter saved my life, but she brought me back. She's the one who brought me back from the edge, who gave me mantras to start saying to myself while she battled aliens and went on these intergalactic wars and things like that. She was my root. She was everything that brought me back. But I mean, books take time. Genius takes time. And the second book, my husband likes to joke, I'm faster than the Tolkien books, who may never ever come out again. At least I'm publishing a book every 2 years in this particular series. But the readers have been impatient with me. And so if you're a reader, please know I am working on it. I promise. Book 3 is in the works.
3 is in the works. Yeah, and they say that if you can get a foothold in the fiction world, that series are the best way to go.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, I mean, and I can't imagine sitting down and, like, actually getting it all out on paper, right? I mean, it's one thing to create the world in your mind, another thing to put it on paper and have it match what you saw in your head.
Mhm. Well, I have this beautiful ability to not see anything in my head until the moment I write it down. And sometimes I even forget what I've written down. So my husband, I was just writing a short story for a collaboration book that we're doing in the fiction space. And he's like, I cannot believe they lost their fingers. And I was like, who lost what fingers? And he's like, oh my gosh, like he knows his writing better, or my writing better than I do at this point. But I'm very go with the flow. And it's one of the reasons I don't coach in the fiction space, is because my mind just doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
With nonfiction, it makes so much sense to me to move step by step. It's
yeah.
crystal clear. The path is obvious. Fiction, a whole nother game for me.
Amazing. Amazing. So when people are, looking to engage with you, because I mean, they must come to you with huge amounts of questions. So when they're looking to engage with you, what is it that they can expect from that initial kind of talk? What is it that they can expect to walk away with?
Yeah. This is the universe speaking through me, or whatever you want to call it, but most people come to me just curious. They just want to know, and by the end of it they have this super clear vision of exactly what their book is, what it is about, who it's for, and how we're going to tackle it. Most of the time authors, or want to be authors, have several books bouncing around in their head, and they get this limited belief that they have to do it all at once, or that it can't be done all at once. And sometimes I come to them and I'm like, well, why not? Like, why can't one of the last discovery calls I had was like, well, what if we put those all together? And that was it. That was the light bulb moment for her, right? I am incredibly good, toot own horn here. I'm incredibly good at seeing patterns and synchronicities and opportunities. So if you come to me and you're like, I have these 3 books that I've been thinking about, or I know I have a book in me, I just don't know where to start. Guarantee you in the 45-minute free call with me, you're going to get all the clarity you need.
What type of, like, do you have call to actions? Do you have any kind of downloads on your site? Anything that somebody, if they're not ready to take that call and they're just exploring, is there anything that you have on your site that can maybe help them explore a little?
Yeah, my site is full of blogs and podcasts and all of these informations. You can go there if you just want to poke around and hear from other industry experts, hear from authors who've been through our programs, what their experiences were like. Our podcast is the best place to go. And it's on our website at nextpagepublishing.net. You can go there. We just wrapped up season 3, and then we're recording for season 4 now. So that's an incredible resource. But we also have a workbook that you can download on there. And it's the top 3 steps, the 3 steps you need to take to start writing a 5-star read. And again, it's those steps that I talked about: knowing your audience, knowing what your big promise is, and then creating your outline. You do those 3 things and you are ahead of most aspiring authors.
Now, I have a question as to when it gets published, right? How do you track, how it has the number 1 Amazon, bestseller, best in the category kind of thing? Um, because I know in watching like podcast analytics, they go up and down so fast based
Mhm.
on, do you have a certain like uh process when the book comes out to help them achieve that top 1%, or are you watching the charts? Like, how does that work? Because I've always been curious about that.
Mhm. Part of the partnership is that I am just as nervous for you to launch your book as you are. I guarantee you that. I know what it's like. I know what you're going through. So yeah, I am refreshing your page like mad all day. I'll give you a little bit of ease. They only update roughly every 4 hours, so you can
Okay.
check every 4 hours. You don't have to check every hour like I will do anyways, because hey, anxiety, nice to meet you. But I also do have a software that runs in the background that keeps an eye on it. And the biggest thing we do for our authors is make sure they're in the right categories with the right keywords.
Yeah.
That's the best thing we can do for them, is that metadata research into their competitors, into their niche, into their market, and find out what people are searching and what their competitors are being listed under.
Very cool. I've always wondered about that. I've always wondered, like, just is it like the launch of a movie or something where you sit there and you don't sleep for 3 days?
Pretty much.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
having having gone through it just recently, I've gotten pretty good at going with the flow, as rocky as the flow can be sometimes. But yeah, those it's day 1 and day 2. It's the night before your book launch. It can be really scary. It can be full of imposter syndrome. And then the day of is full of love and light and joy. And you cannot believe that the people, we always encourage, or if not, host our authors for their launch day parties so that they can just sit back and relax and celebrate in the moment, because that day you've been working on it for, let's say, up to 9, 10 months. It's like you've been pregnant and you're about to give birth to a baby. We want to celebrate that. And then the day after is a lot like the night before. You are low, and you are maybe the day after, maybe 2 days after, it feels like, holy crap, my people are reading my book. What's going to happen now? And it takes about a week to get out of that launch phase and into, okay, let's think long term. What's the long-term plan here? And we try and help our authors with that as much as possible before launch, so that they're not scrambling to come up with their plans and everything is just in place. That circus tent pole is standing up and ready to go. But sometimes the authors, they can't see past launch week. There's just too many emotions, too many nerves, too much feeling. And so we'll come back and we'll do post-launch. We call it aftercare or the ecosystem. It's like, yeah, it's like
Aftercare.
aftercare, right?
Yep,
Like what you've given birth, now what?
yep.
So that we come back in and we help them with all that as well.
Amazing, amazing. And they can reach out to you through your website and also run through for our audio audience. If you could run through your socials, that would be awesome. And everything
Yeah,
will be in the show notes, folks.
absolutely. So you can find me at, just send me a direct email. That's the best way to get in front of my face at Larissa at NextPage Publishing. Direct line to my inbox where you can ask me questions, chat. Let's find a time to get together one-on-one, face-to-face, and figure out how to get you from that spot of like, I think I want to do this to like, hell yeah, I need to do this. I am all in. Because sometimes all it takes is a focused conversation to get us there. So that's Larissa at nextpagepublishing.net or .info, my apologies. And then you can find our website, all of our freebies, all of our resources, everything. We have a boot camp coming up this summer that you can join. It's at nextpagepublishing.net.
Awesome. Now, I always like to close the show out with a quote. And so give us your quote. And
I
then,
didn't do this because it was easy. I did it because I thought it would be easy.
and why does that resonate with you?
I saw this on a flag on a social media post. Someone had like handmade it. And I was like, well, if that isn't my life, I don't know what is. I will start projects,
Yeah.
books, podcasts, businesses on the idea of like, this will be easy. And then I get like a year in and I'm like, holy cow, what was that?
That was actually what my husband told me when I went into real estate back in 1999. Why don't you go into real estate? It looks easy.
Yeah. And you think it is. And sometimes you have to just dilute yourself and make yourself delusional to the point where you're like, yeah, this is easy. It's easy. It's fine. I'm okay.
Oh, too funny, too funny. Oh, I am so with you, and I appreciate like the tangible takeaways that you've shared today, and being so candid in your story of what the catalyst is. And I think that sometimes people think somebody's lucky for their success, but luck is not. There is no such thing as luck. It's literally uh taking momentum, creating momentum when you need to create momentum, and then recognizing it and taking action within that momentum. So, I really appreciate you sharing that story.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity.
Excellent. All right, everyone, do go out. Larissa, before we close out, what can the reader like? Who is your target audience for The Destroyer?
Women who like science fiction and space opera type things where the character is not she's not a good girl. She's not someone you want to love. She's someone you actually hate to love because she's diverse, she's complicated, she has emotions, she's a real woman, she's torn. Does she save this galaxy? Does she stay in Gatlin or does she come back to her family? Like, what does she do? Like, she's facing, air quotes here, real world problems.
Excellent. So, you know what? Go out, check it out. It is book 2. There is a third one in the works, Larissa promises. And until next time, you know what? Give yourself some space and some grace because you're worth it. You're doing exactly what you should be doing. Thank you for joining us here today at Kim Talks Resilience. I'm your host, Kim Hayden, and I'd love to invite you to our resilient community at resilientgift.com. That's resilientgift.com, and we'll send you our magazine and tickets for upcoming events and all sorts of cool things we do here. So be sure to keep watching, and you know what? Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share, because we all know that sharing is caring.